everyone, welcome to this video. Thank you very much for clicking on it. I really appreciate it. Today we have video number 2 out of the 4 that I am doing for my top releases of 2021, and today we're going to be going through my top albums. Out of all of the lists, I have a feeling this one could be the most divisive. I don't really know why, I just feel like people get really passionate over albums, which is fair enough. There have been some amazing albums dropped this year. But yeah, nonetheless, just keep in mind, these are just my personal favorites. This is my personal list out of quite literally hundreds of albums I've listened to this year. I've listened to so many. Let me see if I can... No, I'm not going to go through and try and work it out, but it's a lot. It's a lot. I've done a lot of album listens this year. So yeah, just keep in mind that this is just my personal list, my personal favorites. It's not a these are the best ones ever kind of thing. It's just me. But yeah, you're welcome to leave your list of your own favorites in the comments, but as always, remember to be respectful. Any hate or toxicity or anything like that will just be removed, so don't waste your time, or mine, basically. Yeah, same as yesterday with the debuts, I'm gonna be talking through my top 10 albums, but before we do that, because there are so many incredible albums and so many that I want to highlight but couldn't fit into a top 10, I'm also going to show just a few honorable mentions of albums that I really love. But yeah, just couldn't quite squeeze into that top 10. So I'll show you those really quickly, just in quick succession. I won't say anything about them, I'll just show you them, and then I'll come back and we'll go through the top 10. Okay? See you in a second.
I'm a pirate, Pretty girl, you like bitches. Soft하게 감싸. 이번 가득 번진 sweetness. Feels good to be the bad guy.
Okay, so with that out of the way, honorable mentions, amazing. Like I said, there's just been too many incredible albums this year. I can't squeeze them all onto this list, but this is just my tippity top, my absolute favorites. But yeah, let's dive into my top 10. Now, if you watched my video yesterday of my top 10 debuts, then you'll know I talked quite a bit. It was quite a long video. It was much longer than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if I'm going to have as much to say during this list. There isn't as much to focus on because it's just on the albums. But I will say a few words, explain a little bit as to why they're on the list, and also let you guys know what my favorite tracks on each of them are. So let's get into it. Starting us off with number 10, P1 Harmony with Disharmony Breakout.
Nani? Hey, walk out. Tell me what? Nani? Luka, tell me what?
You knew I had to throw my best boys onto this list. You knew. Yeah, this was the year I finally found myself an ultimate boy group. There are plenty of boy groups that I absolutely love and adore. But this year, I found one that just captured my heart in a whole different way. P1 Harmony, I just love them so much, and I can't even explain why. I won't talk about all of the reasons why I love P1 Harmony, because that's not the point of this video, but I will be here all day. But yeah, I'll just say that this comeback is the reason that I started falling in love with them in the first place. This album is it's just so good, man. It's just, their music in general is amazing, and this album, like from the second that I heard Scared, first of all, and then the second that I listened to the album and their previous stuff, I was just like, oh, I am all in on this group. Like, it was just like this immediate thing. But yeah, I won't talk too much because, like I said, I don't want this to get too long, but I'll just say that my favorite tracks are of the album are If You Call Me, Ayaya, Pyramid, and of course Scared. Scared is just such an iconic track. I know not everyone loved it. It's a bit weird, but I absolutely adore it. Yeah, I really hope that these boys get more recognition as time goes on, because their music, it's just so good. It's just so good, and the boys are so talented and lovely, and they're just a really incredible group. So I hope that in time they get more recognition for it, because they deserve it. Speaking of, they're having a comeback on January 3rd, so like, check it out maybe when it drops. It's on Monday, please. But yeah, okay, let's move on. So coming in at number 9, we have Red Velvet's Queendom. This is one of those albums that I can really see being on a lot of people's lists this year. You know, we had a few really great like feel-good moments in K-pop this year, but Red Velvet finally coming back as a full group, all together, with an amazing, amazing album. It's just a whole different league, and I still get really emotional when I think about it. Like every time like I've seen them perform, every time I just think about it too much, like I get really emotional thinking about it, because you just they came back so strong. The album is truly a no-skip masterpiece in true Red Velvet style. And I said this when it released, and I will say it again. Listening to the album while knowing the history of everything that they went through, as well as everything that like all the bad news that we've had regarding girl groups this year, it just felt like the warmest, most reassuring hug. It was just amazing. I love this album so much. I love everything that it represents, and I think it stands as one of the most like emotionally satisfying comebacks of the year, I think. It just feels so good. But yeah, my favorite tracks on the album are actually quite hard to decide, but I'll go with Better Be, Hello Sunset, and Knock on Wood, I think, are my top 3 on the album. But the whole thing is amazing. Let's move on. Alrighty, so coming in at number 8, we have one of many soloists. We have Woods with Only Lovers Left. Yeah, the soloists really came through this year, and it's not that like they don't always bring it, like they always bring incredible music and they always have such a special place in the K-pop world, but this year the soloists just hit a whole different level. They killed it. And actually, if you include my honorable mentions, I have 6 soloist albums on this list, which is actually kind of wild considering the fact that I am generally much more like focused on groups. I love soloists and obviously I follow them, but in terms of like standing or anything like that, I don't necessarily say like I stan a huge amount of soloists, but goddamn, their music this year has just been on a different level. But anyway, Woods, he's had a pretty stellar year in general. I feel like everything that he's dropped has just been amazing. But this album is so good. I went into it, I had no idea what to expect, and actually having listened to Waiting, because obviously I did my reaction to the music video prior, and I really enjoyed Waiting, but I was kind of like, what am I in for with this album? Like, I didn't know what to expect, and I definitely didn't expect to love it as much as I do, but honestly now it's probably one of my most listened to albums of the year. It's one of, like, most of the time when I check out a release, there's like a few songs on an album that I will chuck into a big old playlist and then, you know, just listen to the songs as and when they come on in shuffle or seek out these individual songs or whatever. There's very few times that I actively seek out just an album and just listen to the full album, you know, for whatever reason. But this is one of those albums that I did, and there's a few albums like that on this list, which is why they're on this list. But his is definitely one of that. Only Lovers Left is one of those albums that I went back to time and time again to just listen to the full thing. and also had songs in playlists that I would just listen to as well. Like, it's just so good. I listen to it so much, and yeah, he did the damn thing with this album. Favorite tracks are Kiss of Fire, Sour Candy, and Thinking About You. But again, the whole thing, amazing. Let's move on. And to soloist number 2 on this list, we have CL's Alpha.
I can tie a cherry. Look, I gotta go. 정오만의 carry. Supervision 눈을 떠. 닿지 못할 곳에 높게 쏘는 rocket shots on the target.
See, I'm telling you, the soloist did something different this year. But anyway, this album seriously feels like it's been such a long time coming. I can't even remember when it was first announced, but it feels like it was a long time ago. We had so many pre-releases. I think it got delayed a couple of times as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure on all of the details, but what I do know is that in that long wait, it was 100% worth the wait. It is such a good and insanely versatile album. I think it showcases so many amazing different sides to CL, and as someone who obviously I know CL, like I feel like most people know CL, she's an icon, but I never followed to anyone particularly closely. I haven't followed her solo career particularly closely. I just kind of listen to the music as and when it comes out. So as someone who is kind of on the outside, being able to see all these different sides and this versatility come through on this album was really, really, really cool. I feel like it gave such like a well-rounded view of her as an artist, and I think that's amazing. But yeah, the album, it's just a masterpiece. It's so freaking good. And again, it's an album that I listen to a lot. Yeah, favorite tracks, Lover Like Me, Siren, Let It, and Sigh. Yeah, for the most part on these lists, I've tried to keep it to like 3 songs, but on this one, like, don't make me choose just 3. Don't make me. It's too long an album to select just 3. But yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Let's move on. Okay, so coming in at number 6 then, we have Wonwi with Planet 9 Alter Ego. So yeah, if you know my history with Wonwi, then this shouldn't really be much of a surprise to like see them on this list. They had my favorite song overall last year with Parting, and just in general they have one of my all-time favorite discographies from any group. I love their music so much, and this album, like, to be honest, just based on Aurora, I would put it in this list just based on that one song. But then you factor in how incredible all of the other tracks are, and it's just a god tier album. Like, I know that it's one of those musical styles where it's not going to be to everyone's taste. But for me, who is a big lover of like that kind of more, I guess, like sentimental sound, you could say, I love their music so much. They are such incredible songwriters, such incredible musicians, and this album is just amazing. Yeah, favorite tracks, Aurora, like I said, would literally put this album on this list just for that track. Cosmos and Veronica as well. I cannot wait for the comeback. It's literally next week. I cannot believe it has come by so fast, but we're getting more amazing music, and I'm sure it's going to absolutely dominate the entirety of my next year, and I'm really looking forward to it. Please, for the love of God, check it out. Wonwi deserves so much more attention than they get. Please. Anyway, let's move on. So, on to number 5. This again, much like with Red Velvet's Queendom, is another album that I expect I will see in a lot of people's lists. We have Twice's Formula of Love. Yeah, I feel like I don't really need to explain this one. Like, it's Twice, and this album, in my mind, and I feel like I'm definitely not the only one to think this, but this is one of the best albums that they've ever released, which is really saying something because good lord, those girls know how to work. But yeah, each and every track on the album is incredible, and for a group, like I said, that works as hard as they do and puts out as much music and content as they do, they really do not ever miss, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, Twice is a group that just, with their whole chest, says quality and quantity. They said both, and this album I think is just an excellent example of that. Favorite tracks on it: Icon, Espresso, and Last Waltz. But again, the whole thing, every single track is so good. I think after it came out, I did my album listen to it, and I needed to just go and have a lie down. I just needed to like just lie there and process what the hell I just listened to, because it's amazing. It's Twice really are just that group. That's it. That's my last thing I'm gonna say about it. Twice are just that group. This album is phenomenal. Let's move on. Okay, so coming in at number 4. I actually had a bit of an interesting time trying to figure out where I wanted to place this one on this list, but I decided to go here. And the only reason really is here's the thing. 4 through to number 1, all of these albums have had huge impacts on me. 4 through 1, every single one of them has had a huge impact on me in a very different way, like each one in a very different way, and they've stayed with me in very different ways. I think the reason I've put this one here is because out of the 4, this is the most recent, and so I haven't had as much time with it. But it is still an absolute masterpiece of an album. Coming in at number 4 is Monster X's The Dreaming.
But that's a you problem. You know it's out my hands. See that on me to solve them. Cause you've been making plans about us. It's simple. Get lost in the romance and just dance. Oh, let's just dance, alright.
Yeah, this album hit me like an absolute train. It hit me like an absolute train. Like, I knew it was coming, obviously, but like, I'd barely even begun to recover from the No Limit album, which was amazing in its own right. And then they dropped this absolute masterpiece of an English album, and I simply was not ready. I simply wasn't ready. I had so many people say in like comments to my reaction to the music video and to the album itself, how they didn't expect this album to top their previous English album, and yet, at least for me, it completely and utterly does, which is a tall order. Like, their previous English album is amazing, it's so freaking good, but this hit different. This album, I don't think I will ever forget how I felt listening to this album for the first time, and the fact that every time I listen to a track from it, I have to listen to it at least one more time, and then listen to another track at least 2 more times. Is this a testament to the replayability? Is that a word? Replayability? Sure. Of the album as a whole. Like, it's just such a good pop album. It's so good. I can't even fully explain like the emotional resonance that I felt with this album. It just connected with me on a real deep level, and I love it so much. Favorite tracks, all of them, but The Dreaming itself, I don't think I will ever recover from this song. This is the song that I've listened to the most off of the album. This is the song that hits me in such an emotionally deep way that I have to just sit there in thought for a little bit after I listen to it, and then just listen to it on repeat for like 6 times. But yeah, The Dreaming, About Last Night, and Secrets are my favorite tracks on the album, but the whole thing is just so exquisitely good. It's so good. I love Monster X, man. I love Monster X so much. Anyway, listen to this album if you haven't already. I highly recommend it. Let's move on. So, coming in at number 3, we have MCND's The Earth Secret Mission Chapter 1. Bet you weren't expecting that one, huh? To be honest, neither was I. This is an album, so... Oh no. I'm still not fully recovered from my cold from last week, so forgive. But yeah, this album has had me in a complete and utter vice grip since the second I first listened to it. And here's the thing, right? I don't know MCND very well at all. I follow them very, very loosely. I basically just check out new music as and when it drops, and that's kind of it. That's kind of the extent of my foray into standing MCND, is just the music. But this album, I can't even properly explain what it is that I love so much about it. Sometimes I think an album or a song, it just kind of resonates with you in a way that has no like no rationality behind it. But regardless, this album is just so much fun, and it's brilliantly well made, and will probably go down as one of my favorite boy group albums of all time. Like it's been months, and I've yet to even slightly get bored of it. So at this point, yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. I think I'm just in it for the long haul with this album. But yeah, favorite tracks off this one: Cat's Waltz, Play Pungak, and Honey Butter Chip. If you haven't listened to that song is so fun. Honey Butter Chip, it's so good. But yeah, no, the album itself is such a good time. Please, please, please go and listen to it if you haven't. It's just so much fun. It is so much fun in an album. Highly recommend. Let's move on. So, coming in at number 2, we have Ailey with Amy. And thus we reach the last of the soloists on this list, and again, yet another album that I would never have expected would have ended up on this list before I listened to it, just like with MCNDs. But I can't stop listening to it. It, once again, like MCNDs, has me in a vice grip. I pretty much, this is probably, with the exception of the album that's in number 1, it is probably the album that I have put like the most hours into listening, especially like the first half of it. So she released, Amy is technically like it's like a 2-parter. So she released one half, and then released Amy, which was one half plus a whole bunch of extra songs. I just put Amy because it was easier and it included pretty much everything. But especially the first half, I listened to that an ungodly amount, and I'm still listening to it. It's so freaking good. Every single track, though, has a very special place in my heart. I am still super new to Ailey as an artist. I have followed her very, 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 very loosely over the last couple of years, but she, with this album especially, has definitely become a contender for one of my favorite soloists if she keeps dropping music like this. Like, yeah, her voice, her sound, her whole, like, just aura, she's just great. She's just great. Ailey is just great. And I since listening to this album, I just really want to get to know her more and, like, go back and listen to her older stuff, see her older music videos and all that stuff, because she's just so good. And yeah, I love this album a lot. Favorite tracks off of this one, again, all of them, but if I have to pick 3, I'll go with Ain't Talking About Me, Lose Myself to You, and 5 to 5. Those are probably the 3 that I've listened to the most, and the 3 that I go back to the most. But yeah, the whole album, exquisite. Let's move on. Okay, so last, but certainly not least, we have number 1, and coming in at number 1, we have Pixie with Fairy Forest Bravery.
Let me know, boy. Let me know, boy. Let me know, boy. Let me know, boy. I just wanna know. 네 모든 걸 가르쳐줘. Tell me why. 엄청나만 보이게 해.
Now, first things first, I just have to say, I promise not every number 1 in these lists is Pixie. But once again, this should not be a surprise to anyone. If you know me at all, if you know my love for Pixie, if you saw my video yesterday on the debuts, this is the shortest album of all of the ones on the list, but it is without a doubt the album that has stayed with me the most out of everything that I have listened to this year. I said it yesterday in the debut video, but every single B-side on this album sits in my top 20 most listened to tracks of this year. And there was a period of about like 3 or 4 months after it came out where like basically my top 5 was this whole album. Like, it dominated my year, this album did. I could not stop listening to it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But All Art's in-house production team, Kevin, honestly, they just seem to make music that is completely designed for me to be obsessed with. I don't know how they do it, but Kevin and the rest of the team, they are something else. They are something else. They put some kind of crack in their music, and it absolutely kills me. And I am obsessed. And it's like 90% of the reason why I put Pixie as my #1 debut of this year is because of their music. Like there's a million other reasons why they deserve to be, because they're amazing, but their music is just so god tier. I love it so much. But yeah, anytime Pixie announces a comeback from now on, I know I'm just gonna lose my mind in excitement, because like I said, their music, it just feels like it's completely catered to me and my tastes, and every time that I listen to it, it doesn't get old. I don't get bored of it. I could just keep listening to it over and over and over again and love it just as much as I did the first time I heard it. So yeah, whatever masterpieces they're gonna drop next, I am completely and utterly ready for, with open arms and an open heart. And a whole lot of love. But yeah, probably not a surprise. Favorite tracks off of this are The Moon, Greedy, and Insomnia, aka the 3 B-sides. Just so good. Just so good. I swear to God, I've like made it my mission to turn as many people into Pixie stans as I possibly can. So if you're watching this and you don't know Pixie very well at all, just go and listen to those 3 songs. Go and listen to those 3 songs, I beg of you, and just see what you think. If you listen to those 3 songs and you're still like, maybe Pixie's not for me, then fine. Their musical style is probably just not for you, but please just go and do it, because it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, that is the end of my Stan Pixie agenda for today. Like I said, I promise not every #1 on these lists is Pixie, but they definitely were a big part of my 2021, which is why they were my #1 debut and my #1 album as well. But yeah. That'll bring me to the end of this list. That is it for today. Remember to let me know your own favorite albums in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, I've listened to so freaking many albums this year and loved the vast majority of the ones that I've heard, so chances are I will agree with your list even if they are completely different to mine. Just remember, as always, be respectful to each other, to me, to the artists, all of that jazz. Next video will be my top 50 B-sides. I'm not going to talk through all 50. I will show you 50 through to 11 and then talk through my top 10 like I've done with these past 2 videos. Like I said, I promise #1 is a different group, so hopefully it'll be a little less predictable, or not, depending on how well you know me. But yeah, tune into that if you want to, but if not, thank you very much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.